So good afternoon, and I'm going to continue with my watercolour painting of the brown hare. I have already applied one layer of sort of an underbase colour of most of the body of the hare, as you can see. That was a mixture of Naples yellow, yellow ochre and light red, wet onto wet, almost damp onto damp, and I added a little bit of the darker patches towards the rear end of the hare using a mixture of cobalt blue and burnt umber to create a sort of warm grey. I'm now going to go on to the second layer of the hare's body. I'm using a number 4 natural hairbrush to quickly wet the fur of the hare's body. This brown hare was photographed from the edge of some woodland, and the dry twigs that I trod on resulted in the hare darting across the field. So it's in full swing as it runs across the field, and therefore you can't really see that much detail in the fur, and therefore, because I can't see much detail, I won't put much detail. I only paint what I can see rather than what I think I can see, and that's normally a good policy. Don't overwork your paintings. As long as you're painting wet into wet or damp into damp for a creature's fur or a bird's feathering, then you should have nice soft fur or feathering. So I've wet the body, because I'm now going to go into a second layer of colour. What I'm doing is I'm just boosting the strength of tone. I'm building up tone in this hare in layers. If I go in with a dark, strong toned layer of paint right off from the start, then I've got nowhere lighter to go. So I would then have to start lifting paint off, which is a waste of paint and a bit of a waste of time. So I build up from light to dark. I've got the heating on in my little studio, and so the water that I've applied to the hare's body has already started drying in places, so I'm keeping an eye on that and topping up the layer of water that I'm applying to the hare's body. I need to be working wet into wet, or at least damp into damp, so that I don't get any strident edges of brush strokes or scratchy sort of lines of paint. I want it to all blend softly to depict soft fur. Okay, so I can see by looking at my hair that it's looking shiny, wet, and I'm now going to drop in a stronger mix of the same colours. So that's yellow ochre, light red and a bit of Naples yellow. And because it's painted wet into wet, you won't see any hard edges. I'm not actually really brushing particularly any fur, but if I were brushing fur, I would be brushing in the direction that the fur lies. And because this hare is running from left to right, the fur would most likely be going in the opposite direction from right to left. But as I say, the hare was a long distance away and was running at speed, so you wouldn't be able to pick out that sort of detail in individual strands of fur. Now I'm constantly keeping an eye on my paper to see whether it is still wet or damp, what stage it's at basically, and I can see in parts it's beginning to almost dry, so this will be the last few seconds of applying paint before I have to stop this layer. And you can see now that I've increased the strength of tone in the hare's body.